Yep.
Where Joseph goes and bought a linen shroud. Okay, perfect. Let me begin with the internal argument first. If it's inconceivable that Joseph bought the linen shroud on 15 Nisan, on the day after they ate the lambs on Thursday night, because of rules about festal rest, then why didn't Mark know that? That'd be one question. All right. In other words, Mark doesn't seem to think it's implausible or impossible for Joseph to buy a linen shroud on 15 Nisan, because Mark's the one who tells us he bought it on that 15th of Nisan. You see what I mean? Like, so just with terms of the internal evidence of the gospel itself, we've got a first century, this is important, a first century witness by an author who, Mark in this case, not only knows Greek, but knows what? He knows Aramaic too, right? And he's familiar with the Jewish scriptures. He knows Judaism well. You see that throughout Mark's gospel. He presupposes, now some things he'll explain. Obviously, he's got some Gentiles in view, but he presupposes that you know Judaism, and he certainly knows it. I mean, look at some of the intertextual works that's been done on Mark lately, and you'll see that. So Mark doesn't think it's implausible. So this is a first century source saying it's not implausible for Joseph to go and buy that linen shroud. Now, but what about the external evidence? Well, again, one of the things scholars will do is say, well, it's impossible for Joseph to have done this on a festal Sabbath, as you put it, right? And this takes us back to that question, well, what exactly was not permitted on a festal Sabbath in the first century? And the answer is, we don't really know. Okay, that's the first part. It's like, it's not clear, because if you look at Leviticus, the distinction between a festal Sabbath and the rest of a regular Sabbath is all that's clear is a regular Sabbath, Shabbat, that is more rigorous than a festal Sabbath, because in a regular Sabbath, you can't do any work. Festal Sabbath, you just can't do laborious work. Well, what qualifies as laborious work? That's not really clear, right? And as Sanders points out, there was more debate about that than any other rabbinic issue on these issues of rest. And so there is no second temple source that we have that says what Joseph is doing here is impossible. There just isn't one, right? And there is one that's saying what he's doing is possible, namely Mark. And I guess, does Matthew say the same thing? Does Matthew tell us that he got a shroud too? Because
it doesn't say, it says that he got a shroud. He took a shroud. He doesn't say bought.
Okay, I got it. I got you. Okay. So, and then the other final thing I would point out is that if you go back and look at the Mishnah carefully, it looks like that it permits the acquisition of a coffin or a shroud on the Sabbath. So if you look at Mishnah Shabbat 23:4, it says they may await nightfall at the Sabbath limit to see the business of the reception of a bride or the burial of a corpse to fetch its coffin or its wrappings, okay, which would be, of course, the shroud. So there seems to be permission there given to take care of certain necessary things, like preparing a body, right, for burial in Mishnah Shabbat 23. Now, some scholars have suggested that what may have happened here, too, is that Joseph left a pledge with someone, and so that he could do the actual payment later so as not to violate the festal rest. I'm open to that, too. But it seems to me that if the Mishnah, if we have no second temple sources prohibiting it, and we have a second temple source permitting it, namely Mark, and the Mishnah allows for certain necessities, like getting a shroud to take place on a Sabbath, how much more so on a festal Sabbath, which is less than a regular Sabbath, not greater than a regular Sabbath? That would be my response. Do you have another suggestion, Caleb? Because I'm open.
I actually like what you're saying, because I think the idea of taking a body to laying a body down during the Sabbath, whether it's a regular Sabbath or a festival Sabbath, I think that would be permitted. And but at the same time, and this is I want to be very hesitant, because I know that Dr. Pitre, your Greek is leaps and bounds better than mine, and obviously Rob being my Greek teacher, I don't want to shame him here, but I see that Mark also uses the same word bought, and he uses it in the same form, which is aorist. And so my thought is,
interesting.
And it's in a participle also, which as the aorist participle in a clause, it's a temporal clause. It's not even the main meat of the sentence. We're not really given a time.
Exactly.
You know,
and we see
flexibility with time.
We see it with the women. We see it with the women too, right? The women, only in Mark are we is the word bought used for the spices when it says that they bought and prepared the spices. But once again, it's in the aorist form. So my thought is that Mark is actually not using a specific time marker, but it could be translated almost as the spices that they had previously bought.
Yeah, or having bought a shroud or having purchased a garment or linen cloth, he went to the tomb and prepared. Oh, that's fascinating. I did not look as closely at that as I should have.
But in any case, Dr. Pitre, I really think there's a lot of value with connecting that John 19:31.
Yeah.
Because there is it's not just Yeshua's body.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the camera's zooming us in on what those who are caring for the Messiah's body are up to. But we've seen the general declaration, we got to get these down. And in the Jewish culture, there's a high value on caring for the bodies. And so it's not like we're just get these bodies down and hide them out of sight. But there's actually, presumably, families maybe, I don't know, caring for these other two bodies as well. And the necessity that you point out with doing that overrides
that's exactly right.
General
rules about even Sabbath rest or festival rest.
Hey, did you enjoy that clip? If you did, you should like it and share it. That way other people can see it. Also, you should subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do that by clicking this round thing right there. Just do it. Click that. Or you can also catch the full episode of that clip by clicking that right there.